This is Kevin Conroy, and I am the goddamn Batman.
Welcome to Back Issue Classics, here inside the pull bag. TFG1-MITE brings in a variety of hosts to cover many comics. We review stuff from DC, Marvel, IDW, Image, Zenescope, and more. So open your ears to hear our discussions on comics you might not have known about. It's all here inside the pull bag with Back Issue Classics. Welcome to Back Issue Classics. Here inside the pull bag, TFG1-MITE brings in a variety of hosts to cover many comics. We review stuff from DC, Marvel, IDW, Image, Zenescope, and more. So open your ears to hear our discussions on comics you might not have known about. It's all here inside the pull bag with Back Issue Classics.
Hello and welcome to the Pull Bag Back Issue Classics episode 77. And sadly, no, we are not in a galaxy far, far away. I would have loved to have been able to do that, but no, not this time, folks. And so yeah, Back Issue Classics episode 77 here. We're going to go beyond Batman Beyond. I'm, of course, TFG1-MITE, and joining me for the first time since I think the BAT-MITE coverage is JT from Saskatoon.
I'm back.
That's scary.
I've been practicing.
Yeah, I think you need to go check your sugars. Oh, sorry. And we're here.
I love you too, Mike.
We're here to talk about, in the trade paperback kind of form, Batman Beyond, the 2015 series done by Dan Jurgens and Bernard Chang. We're going to talk about the first story arc, Brave New Worlds, which covers issues 1 through 6 of Batman Beyond. Now, I remember a few years ago when they were doing the Futures End thing and whatever else, and at Free Comic Book Day, we had Futures End number 0, where Terry McGinnis gets sent back to the future. Sadly, the Batmobile did not look like a DeLorean, but...
Yeah, they kind of Back to the Future 2'd their storyline. Because basically what the setup was, like, you go from Justice League number 1, which was the first comic of the New 52. Mm-hmm. Futures End is a storyline that takes 5 years into that, like 5 years into the future of that, where Mr. Terrific has created the T-spheres, and he's more of like this... he's more Puff Daddy by way of Mr. Terrific than Kanye, as some people have called him, and I would never deign to insult Mr. Terrific like that. But basically, there's the Brother Eye, artificial intelligence, is 35 years past that 5-year point, so basically 40 years in the future, is going to take over the world with like these basically his cyborg virus that takes over the world is like the Borg from Star Trek on crank. Mm-hmm. So Bruce and Terry connive, because the world's basically obliterated. They're going to go back in time and prevent this from happening. Bruce is taken out, so Terry goes back, and this is all during the Earth's Two Worlds End and Futures End. They're a weekly comic book series that DC has had some success with over the last few years. Mm-hmm. By the end of it, Terry has averted his future, but dies in the process and bequeaths his suit, the Beyond suit, to now an adult Tim Drake, who, for reasons that are never completely explained, decided to fake his death and retire from a life of being a superhero. And then he goes back to the future to see, make sure everything's like copacetic, and he gets trapped there. And it turns out that Brother Eye still kind of invaded. It's not nearly as bad as Terry's future was.
It's worse.
It's both better and worse in a way. And as we go over the the first time when Terry went back the first time, mm-hmm. it, as I said before with the Borg, it was like Mad Max on crank bad. Mm-hmm. Whereas this one, there's still cities. It's more akin to like the Stallone Judge Dredd future sort of thing. Like humanity has survived. The world is still incredibly fucked up.
I just can't see Commissioner Barbara Gordon in this universe. I am the law. I just can't see her doing that.
And we'll get into it towards the end of it. But at one point in the comic, because I had read this entire series because it has since concluded. At one initially, she shows up with like red hair and she's older, Barbara, and she's Commissioner Gordon still. And then towards the end of the series, they put her into the Batman Beyond animated mold where she's got the white hair and like the Granny Jubilee glasses, and I was like, okay, that's just kind of a hard pivot left, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah,
and we'll get to all of that future stuff because we are going to be covering this entire series, folks. This is just kind of like the prelude episode for this first story arc where we talk about the Brave New Worlds Part 1, the 6-parter here. And then coming up in May, we're going to talk about the other 2 parts, which is City of Yesterday and Wired for Death. And yeah, you're right. They did kind of take various bits from the animated series, like when she first shows up in the Batmobile later on in one of these issues. I was like, hey, look, it's not exactly the animated Batmobile. It's got the
it's got that sleekness, but it's a bit more teched out just in the design.
Yeah, exactly. And, like I said before, this is written by Dan Jurgens. The art is done by Bernard Chang. This is my first time reading a comic with Bernard Chang on art. Obviously Dan Jurgens wrote the BAT-MITE series that we covered last year or so. And you also go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't call this at all blasphemy. A certain other connoisseur of comics.
Oh God! Please, can't we just go one episode without mentioning that guy?
We're not saying him by name. I'm just saying there is a certain other individual on the internet who is quite opinionated about comics.
He's just a guy from Georgia.
I thought he was from Texas.
No. That was a bad John Cena reference, dude. Have you not been keeping up with WWE?
Not really, honestly.
Okay, well, go over to This Week in Geek and listen to Mayhem Mike's. They did because John came back and it was John versus AJ at Rumble this year. Yeah. And John was on it was on the Today Show or one of the shows, and they were joking around and messing around on the show, and like, he's just a guy from Atlanta. He's just a guy from Georgia. So then they work that into the storyline where AJ says, "Oh, I'm just, so yeah, he's just a guy from Texas."
Okay, so what I was getting to there is I'm not saying he's any better or worse, but there's Jeff Loeb, who, if he wrote the movie Commando, which is one of my all-time favorite Schwarzenegger movies. I've always very much enjoyed his style of writing, his stories in comics, because he, for good or ill, he just has this grasp of fun in comics. Like when they started the Superman Batman comic book in the early aughts, and they had Ed McGuinness on art, and it was just kind of a celebration of everything that was fun and just kind of twisted in a new way going forward at that point in DC Comics. And again, Dan Jurgens, I knew him growing up as an artist because, he is like my number one all-time favorite Superman artist. Mm-hmm. Because, when Henry Cavill lost his shirt after saving the Reagan Man of Steel, and he comes around the corner of the church and you see him cut. And I was like, damn, Superman walked off the page. I immediately thought of Dan Jurgens' art. But Dan Jurgens, in the last few years, has turned more to writing with DC than anything. And he is very much like Jeff Loeb. Is like he just kind of has this innate understanding of he knows to make it serious. He knows to have have the odds against a hero. But it's just, it kind of comes out okay in the end. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, you go back and you listen to our BAT-MITE episode, which I'll put in the post, folks. If you listen to that, the BAT-MITE series, which are 6 issues with him on writing and Corin Howell on art, it was just so fun. The writing was so fun. And then you basically give him the reverse here, where it's dark and sinister at times, and there are comedy moments in this series, in this first story arc for Batman Beyond 2015. And I wanted them to stay in the animated universe. I did not want, when they first announced a few years ago, oh, guess what? The Batman Beyond universe is going to become part of the DC fucked up universe proper. And I'm like, no. Leave it in its animated realm and leave it alone. But after reading the whole story arc from beginning to end, from issue 1 to issue 16, absolutely love this series. And again, as I said, this was the first time I saw Bernard Chang's art. I enjoy bits of it. There are certain parts of it that at first kind of jar me, like the pages where it goes from really super polished and glossy to this hard exploding red, yellow, white kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, kind of a monochromatic color.
And that, like, don't get me wrong, I can adjust to art, but I mean, you know, and the other thing for me is I've always wanted, and they've never really given it to me, and I can't. Even if it is Tim Drake as Red Robin leading the Teen Titans, I've never been a Titans fan. Never been a Titans fan. Not that I don't want to read the comics or anything. I just never had. That animated show just put me off completely with the Titans. Teen Titans is not in the DC animated universe continuity, damn it. But it's one of those things where I've always wanted a Red Robin one-shot or a Red Robin mini-series or something specifically focusing on Tim Drake. And we kind of get that here, even though he has stepped into the shoes of Batman. But they basically, because I had remember when they did the 0-year stuff?
Mm-hmm.
I had read his 0-year issue and his origin, and I'm like, oh, cool. And they obviously make homage to that, like he was the first Robin to figure out who Batman was, or he was one of them. I think he was the only one. Yeah. Anyway, so
there's a whole explanation for why he's Red Robin.
Yeah.
You know, exactly. And they kind of reference it in, I forget if it's in this arc, and we'll certainly go over that, but it's in this series. He references, you know, why he was Red Robin and, you know, why he kind of dropped out of the superhero life, so.
Yeah. And, you know, as we get started into the series, you know, I just, like I said, absolutely love it, and we get... you know, we see Tim getting, acclimated to the Beyond universe in the suit and talking to Alf, who apparently does not need... Oh, I'm sorry, Alfred. Because Alfred is his AI. What were your initial thoughts after reading the first two issues? I
was really kind of getting into it. I mean, I've seen... one of the things, first off, that I loved was what they did with the Brother Eye, like the Borgs. Mm-hmm. That Brother Eye uses. Like, it's basically like the Borgs in First Contact, where they inject people and they get turned into a Borg. But in this one, like they get injected, and the next thing you know, like eyes are popping out, and it's all like these cyber knife fingers, and they get like the spider-like legs, and like it's just this full body horror kind of thing, which kind of shocked me initially. And the other thing was, I just didn't think they were going to go like at the end of Future's End, and I didn't think they were going to bring Batman Beyond back. I figured they're just going to throw Tim into the future, and it's kind of like Marty waking up in the alternate 1985 and just leaving it there. Mm-hmm. So when I heard they were bringing Batman Beyond back, I was like, rock on, because I love that stuff. But yeah, the first couple issues, like, it really kind of set the universe very well. It set the stakes very well. You get a very clear idea of what, at least for this first arc, what they have to do moving forward. And then it just kind of builds from there after that. So it really set the hook well, these first couple issues.
Yeah. For me, by the time I got to issues 3 and 4, I was okay with the crazy art style, color change stuff. I know I was apprehensive about that before, but it's just one of those things where it's something that if you haven't seen it before, you just have to get, it's kind of like waking up in the middle of the night and seeing a snowy television, and you're like, wait, I thought that was on Channel 3. Why isn't that, you just have to kind of adjust yourself. And that was what, so by the third and fourth issue, I absolutely loved all of the art. And the dystopian future for Neo Gotham, and Gotham is the only city left standing because it's protected by the veil.
Well, as far as they know, but
yeah,
it's that whole, like I said, that whole kind of, well, not necessarily specifically the Stallone Dredd, but it's got this very kind of Judge Dredd vibe.
Yeah, you know what other kind of vibe it has?
What's that?
Power Rangers RPM.
Yeah, I could see that.
Well, not in this in the sense of Batman, but in the sense of the situation of the fact that
I get that.
Neo Gotham is the only the fact that Neo Gotham is the only city left in the world, and people are just flocking to it because everything else is in ruins. And Brother Eye has always wanted to process Batman, and he eventually, he has said that he always wanted to process Batman, and that was his ultimate goal and whatever else. And I think seeing the processing of Batman, Tim Drake Batman Beyond, is interesting because this is how they remind the reader, hey, this is what, in case you haven't read all the issues of Future's End, in case you haven't read any of the Teen Titans issues, this is Tim Drake's life in the DC New 52 universe. And I absolutely love that. I thought that was great. I love how they bring Ink in, and I love how they bring Deanna in, her daughter as well. And they're doing things in this series that pay homage to the cartoon series without maintaining the DC animated universe kind of style, which to me is fine because it makes it good and interesting and different, and it's telling a different story. Like we had, like I said before, and like you said, we had Terry McGinnis. He went to the past and he had his adventures, and as we find out throughout this one, Terry died and passed on the suit to Tim, and poor little emo Matt is mad at that, and he eventually gets over it as we go along through the other story arcs that we'll talk about in this series. But for me, being a huge fan of the Batman Beyond cartoon and the other Batman Beyond comics, all the comics that Kyle Higgins did with the animated universe stuff that Steve and I covered a couple of years ago, I have no issues story-wise so far with this. I don't think I have a lot of issues at all throughout this entire series, but this first arc, it's interesting, it's fun, it's well written, the art is amazing. I nearly jumped out of my chair when I saw the friggin' Batmobile. My note, the friggin' Batmobile,
Just goddamn, that's a sexy piece of machinery.
Yes it is. I know this would be this would probably be sacrilege to say, but I want to see Black Cat hanging off the side of that thing. Anyway, Universe Cross. Oh well.
Someday, Mike. Someday.
I have an unhealthy crush on Black Cat Jennifer Hale, for all of you that don't know. Oh, God.
No,
okay.
Really, Mike. This is a shock.
Yeah. Well, so my buddy Eduardo and I, we just finished recording seasons 2 through 5 for Spider-Man 94. So,
God forbid the art should be done by J. Scott Campbell, because might fall into a coma.
Oh, Jake Scott Campbell can do Spidey Black Cat for the rest of his life, and I'd be happy. You know how we always talk about, if Peter Cullen and Frank Welker, heaven forbid anything happened to either one of them, but when something, when they pass, it's like, freezing their voices or putting their heads on ice or whatever. It's like J. Scott Campbell, just put them in a block of ice and just make sure he can still draw.
Yeah, well, there's a certain comic book series he created that, he used to say he was going to get back to and finish it, and I've kind of since given up hope. So, And that's another episode entirely.
Yeah, you mentioned the spider-like stuff with the Borg robots, with Superman and Wonder Woman and all the League robots that Brother Eye has. When you mentioned that, the first thing I thought of is, I wonder if Dan Jurgens or Bernard Chang, I wonder if they went back and watched the Batman animated series episode where Mr. Freeze got turned into a spider.
Spider freezed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a little creepy.
Yeah, very.
Not
not
honestly,
a little, it was very creepy.
Of all the things I didn't like about the Red Sky series, that is probably my biggest sticking point.
Mm-hmm.
Was because, after that beautiful build-up with, Heart of Ice, and even that it was very lackluster, the Batman Sub-Zero, the direct-to-tape movie where, he kidnaps Barbara Gordon to save his wife and all that. It's just, that was, such a great send-off for that Mr. Freeze.
Well, they bring him back twice.
Yeah.
They bring him back. Okay, so...
But when they bring him back to the point that he's
Spider Freeze, yeah,
Spider Freeze. It's just once that happens, I was just kind of like, oh, God damn it!
I think Batman Beyond redeemed him though. The Batman Beyond episode redeemed him. So by the time issue 5 begins and going through it, we get the old Jim Gordon robot suit, which I was like, because at this point, Tim's suit. Something happened. We don't know what happened, but the suit died. It ran out of juice or whatever. And after reading this first arc, I'm like, maybe that was Brother Eye's intentions all the time, because Brother Eye was the one that shut down the suit, because didn't he run out of power after he got processed or before? Was the first or beginning of the second issue? Yeah, that's when he ran out of power, so it was before.
Because he's fighting the Superman mech.
Yeah.
And then
that's right.
He got some juice back that reactivated the suit, reactivated the Alfred AI, and then Tim removed the core, because he's like, where's your core? And the suit, I love how this version of the Beyond suit isn't kind of like a cloth woven with circuitry like in the cartoon. It's almost kind of like a symbiote, how it'll peel back and expose areas of that.
Yeah, I look at it as it's a Tron style, because it's pixelated.
It's got that kind of nanotechnology that it peels back and at certain things, like when the first issue where Tim goes back to Nora, was it Boxers, the lady looking after Terry's brother Matt. You see it kind of peel off his face. They have that scene where he asks Alfred, where's your core? And he exposes that bit in the shoulder, and he removes the Alfred core, and he could still use the suit, but now he's kind of on manual versus automatic.
Yeah.
And the suit's kind of ratched a bit when he gets the Jim Gordon special.
Well, yeah, his suit is still kind of screwed up, and he has to use the... Now, I want to go back and do this. Steve and I did cover up to Death of the Family on the New 52 Batman, the 2011 Batman series, but we never actually did Zero. I think we may or may not have done Zero Year, but I like covering the Scott Snyder Batman series by the story arcs. And I wanted to cover the second Joker arc from, was it Endgame from 35 to 40. And then I read issue 41 where Jim becomes Batman, so I knew exactly where the suit, where the 1.0 suit that Barbara mentions in this series, in this story arc, I knew where that came from. I'm like, oh, very cool. They're pulling stuff from this, but I never actually read anything past issue 41 of the Snyder run. I do want to go back to it, but honestly, and I've said this before on this show, Scott Snyder, he is an amazing writer. I don't know the man personally. I have no opinions of him personally, because I'm not going to pass judgment on the guy, but Court of Owls was his best. Death of the Family, to quote the Joker from Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, was sadly anticlimactic to me. And then Zero Year was a cluster flunk of time travel, 5 years this, 5 year that BS.
Well,
the Endgame was cool, but yeah.
Well, it's just, I mean, the New 52, by and large, up until Rebirth, was an experiment in new things a lot of ways. I mean, the whole like they had up to Endgame where it's like the ultimate battle between Batman and Joker, and then Batman, Bruce Wayne's missing, and that's when they start to kind of bring in the Powers Corporation, which at this point in the comics, Bruce has kind of lost control of Wayne Enterprises. He's lost his fortune. Wayne Manor has been turned into the new Arkham Asylum. And so Batman's missing, and they go to Jim Gordon, who's, okay, you're the top cop, you were close with Batman, we recognize Gotham needs a Batman. So they bring in this suit, which for me, I kind of looked at, it looks like Appleseed, because there's this anime that I've watched where one of the main characters is this cyborg with these two antennae that kind of look like bunny ears, and that's kind of where I went to with that suit. And, you know, Jim Gordon as Batman, and then at the same time they had depowered Superman to slightly less than like Golden Age Superman, where, you know, he's leaping buildings in a single bound sort of thing. And by the end of that series, by the end of that Gordon as Batman storyline, you know, Bruce comes back and everything. But yeah, I kind of figured, well, yeah, if you're going to make a Batman, of course you're going to give him like some sort of power suit, because it's just not Batman. Because, you know, Batman is just, to a lot of people in the universe, it's just some dude with a boomerang on a rope.
Yeah.
You know, the average man's looking at it like that. So of course, you know, we got to jack this guy up with all the tech we can get. So yeah, so when the Jim Gordon special shows up in the storyline, like I think it was like issue 5, I was just like, oh yeah,
yeah, it was issue 5, yeah.
And I love that little bit, like once they've got it powered up and it's calibrated to Tim, they have that little effect of like the electricity going down the suit and going from like the blue and silver to the red and black of Beyond.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah, that was so awesome, the color change. And I kind of knew that was going to happen only because I remember reading, like I said, Batman issue 41, where Jim gets the suit, and they showed us in that issue, hey, look, we can make it any color you want. You know, so I do remember that. I think it's great. You know, we haven't really kind of talked about it, but technically Tim is facing off against Terry's greatest foe in ink. I mean, he's also facing off against Brother Eye, but Brother Eye has ink working for him because she'll work for, you know, she goes where the money is. But she's also doing it because Brother Eye has her daughter captured. So I think Dan Jurgens did an amazing job with creating a whole new self-sacrificing story for ink. She's not just an everyday villain. She's not, you know, they handled her very, very well.
Oh, they treat her very well. I mean, especially, it's one of the things I love, the little touches of like nods to the animated series. Like they have like that idea that Ink's doing this for her daughter. You know, that it's a mother loves her children no matter what. You know, they sacrifice everything for them, and I really did like that. And ultimately, like how Ink sacrifices herself, because you get Terry gets the Jim Gordon. He goes to lay waste. Sorry, yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry, Tim gets the Jim Gordon special on. He's laying waste to some of these cyborg bums. I love the nod to, again, the mixing and matching of stuff from Batman and Batman Beyond, because he goes to a former stronghold of the Court of Owls.
Yep.
And there is not off-brand, but off-the-books JLA teleporter that Bruce had hidden away for an emergency. and I love the whole time in the comic book, Brother Eye was like, Bruce Wayne owns this. There is nothing here. Why is he here? Why is he here? And like the recurring theme of Brother Eye being scared of what he doesn't know.
Yeah. You
know? So, sorry, you go.
Well, the funny thing for me was with the whole teleporter thing, the first thing I thought of was when Superman in Justice League in Secret Origins said, "How did you get this past your stockholders, Bruce?" "A line item hidden in the R&D budget."
Yeah.
talking about the JLA Tower in the Justice League cartoon, and that's kind of what was here. It's like, oh, Bruce,
And
always,
just when you say that that like one of my favorite like line item lines was in an early issue. I think it was the second or third issue or something like that in the Jeff Johns Teen Titans run that came out in the early aughts, when it was like Tim, Connor, Cassie, Bart. Tim somehow gets a Batmobile to San Francisco because that's where the Titans were stationed at the time. And it's like, how did you get this past Batman? I hid it in the Batarang budget. And then the first thing I chuckled at that I thought about, jeez, Crow, how much money does he spend on those goddamn things? Where does he get all those wonderful toys?
Yes. That's kind of like in the old in the Kyle Higgins series. I think it was issue 16 of the Kyle Higgins series, or chapter 16 or whatever, where at the very end of it, where you have the broken one that's in half, and it ends on Terry saying, "Geez, these things don't, these things don't last. These things aren't very well made, are they?" Or something like that. It's just hilarious.
Oh yeah.
So we got Brother Eye versus Batman. We got Ink doing her thing. I thought issue 6 was an amazing way to end. Like I said before, the whole reinvention of the 1.0 suit, seeing seeing the manor in like a sunset kind of like, we never need full details. We don't need a 1966 Adam West full detail Wayne Manor house. All we need to do is see the house on the cliff or hill that we know it's normally on, and just see it, and we know exactly what fucking house that is.
Well, yeah, because we don't care what's in the house. We want the basement.
Yeah, we want the basement. Yeah, probably the only time somebody wants the basement apartment is if it's the cave, and we see the cave. Well, we see the cave, and we see that the cave isn't. It's not exactly classic, but it's classic to this era of New 52 because you have the Batgirl Burnside New 52 outfit. After Gail Simone unceremoniously got let go again, jerks. So you got the purple and yellow Batgirl suit there, and they reference that, and hell, Barbara even references the Burnside precinct. So we at least know that Burnside is still obviously part of Gotham, even though they basically said, oh, it's like, 15 miles outside of Gotham or whatever. As these 6 issues progressed, and then leaving us wondering what story they're going to tell next, I absolutely love it. They did an amazing job putting a beginning, middle, and end story together without really leaving us on a hook. I mean, the hook at the end of issue 6 is not necessarily one of those cliffhangers where it's like, oh my god, what's going to happen now? It's more of, okay, so what's next? We handled the Brother Eye issue. What else are they going to throw at us? And we'll find out about that later.
Yeah, no, that's the one thing I loved was how they end. Like, even if this was just a mini series, just kind of cap off, Terry's sacrifice in Future's End and all that. It's kind of like the end of the first Matrix movie. Like, if they hadn't made Reloaded or Revolutions, it still stands on its own.
Right.
Which I feel about this first arc. If they had, just canceled it after this point and just like, hey, I'm good. And one of the things I liked that I loved in this series overall, and especially what they used in this first one, is little details of stuff like I have the single issue. So if you go look in the first kind of panel of the second issue, just on the cover there, as they're running away from being culled in this concentration camp, Barbara's fingers kind of form sort of into an R over Tim's left pectoral muscle. So kind of like an R, and he's got that armor on, which is vaguely reminiscent of his Robin suit.
Yeah, Red Robin.
And something that they did currently in Detective Comics, where Batman brings together Red Robin, Spoiler, Clayface is they're trying to reform, and Batwoman in this one location. They've put Red Robin out of the Adrian Toomes special. They've taken him out of the Vulture suit, and put him into like more of a traditional red and green Robin. Like I love little touches like that when you first see Brother Eye's headquarters, like he's taken over the watchtower on the moon, and the design of that is the design of the watchtower from the Justice League of America series previous to the New 52, and they kind of kept that design with the current satellite in the current ongoing JLA title. A little stuff like that. The fact that in Brother Eye, and you look at even the first cover of the cover of the first issue, and later on in the series you see other bits of it. There's all these nods to the Great Cataclysm, which is like one of the most long-standing and one of my personal favorite bits of lore that Jack Kirby contributed to the DC canon way back in the day. Because you look at it, and like Brother Eye was one of the concepts of, in the OMAC series, and they got on the first cover they've got OMAC and the Atomic Knight and Ben Boxer and Commandy and Hercules and Prince Tufton, and it's just all this. There's all these little subtle nods to Jack Kirby's Great Cataclysm, like where in OMAC, Brother Eye was the satellite that would turn Buddy Blank into OMAC and give him like any of 1,000 superpowers to, deal with whatever he's dealing with. And like years ago when they turned Brother Eye into like this Ultron level, bad guy. I love that. And yeah, as the series, this first 6 issues, like there's just so many little nods going forward. I kept looking for it's just a game I played with myself. It's like every issue I read, I was looking for some Kirby, a wink and a nod like that. Like, hey, you remember this from Kirby? But yeah, just overall, I love this series. Like Ink's Sacrifice, like I love the whole Trojan horse gambit they had with the Jim Gordon special. Like Tim teleports up to the moon. He tries to get a few licks in. Brother Eye is just working him like the Undertaker works, well, everybody up until Brock Lesnar. And then, Ink explodes out and envelops and invests herself into Brother Eye's like corporeal form. And I like the idea that they don't even hint at that, okay, Brother Eye's dead. The cyborgs are dead. There's no more Brother Eye. They could totally bring Brother Eye back.
I hope they don't.
Well, yeah, no, because I mean that it would be fun, but it both lessens it lessens the story in this first 6 issues, and also kind of lessens him as a character if he becomes like Ultron and just, I'll be back, that sort of thing. So I like the fact that, they blow up the factory on the moon, the cyborgs all just drop dead, like, and I know I talked to a couple of friends, it's kind of like Iron Man just nuking that spaceship in Avengers. I was like, very much so. And yeah. But no, I love that. It's like, again, it's just that the constant pushing forward, like you think they're going to be safe. No, this happens. Like they have the veil, and then Brother Eye, co-ops the suit and, brings all the mechs down on him. I think
how he did it was he infected Alfred. He infected the Batman Beyond suit AI. And that's how he got the veil to come down, and Gotham was exposed, and all that, and getting the robots and whatever else to go.
I think he just infected the suit, and then it's kind of like Ultron did to, not exactly, but it's kind of like Ultron just pushed Jarvis away and then killed him in Age of Ultron. He just kind of locked up Alfred, because he says, before he gets a hold of Terry, almost said Terry again. Tim. Before he gets hold of Tim in the suit, his technology is inaccessible. His AI is inaccessible. So whatever programming Bruce put into Alfred was able to hold off Brother Eye. But I mean, he infected the suit, broadcast a signal that penetrated the veil because of how the veil worked. It was like kind of a cascading computer virus. And he brings in the mechs and he's laying waste and all that. And just the idea that they up the Jokers from being like these socially disaffected youth and the need to rebel, and as Alfred calls them, a terroristic street gang.
Yeah.
And then you see, you even have that girl in the first issue who she's not like, Mr. J kind of crazy Joker girl. She's somebody who lost her family in this apocalypse, and she's just looking for an outlet and something to lash out about. And like, she's like, she's like, pardon my French, fuck it, let the world burn. She has nobody left in her life, so she's like, why shouldn't we all just die? And that's why I said, like, with Dan Jurgens, like, he has this great storytelling. Like, he keeps the fun, but he also balances it so it's not straight Silver Age pomp and circumstance. Like, he gets some darkness in there, but it's just enough. It's not drowning in it, which is another thing I love.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just one of those things where after reading this first arc, it was hard not to just reread through the whole series again, because it's just so good. And how they did this, like, was I expecting this series to go 20, 40, 50, 70, 100 issues? No. Because I should know by now to not really expect a lot when it comes to certain DC properties, when it comes to the comics, because look how screwed He-Man has gotten with the DC license over the years. You got the 6-issue miniseries from 2012. You got the digital series that was 8 issues. The 2013 proper series was only 19 issues. Eternity War was only 15 issues. And now we've got... And then DC Universe versus Masters was only 6, but that was meant to be only 6. And then we got...
He-Man Thundercats.
He-Man Thundercats, which is supposed to be only 6 or 8 or something or other. So
yeah.
I'm not really surprised that Batman Beyond 2015 was only 16 comic books. And I don't mind that it is, because how, again, as I said, with this specific opening story, between issues 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 and 6, 1 and 2 are the beginning, 3 and 4 middle, 5 and 6 ending. And then as you look at the whole arc of the series, you got Brave New Worlds. Next up in May, the first episode we'll do for this series is City of Yesterday. And then the final storyline, Wired for Death. And how Dan Jurgens and Bernard Chang progressed through the series is what I see is them looking at, okay, how can we tell a unique story for ourselves, including Tim Drake, as well as throwing in those Batman Beyond nods from the series, from other comics, from other, and they just do such an amazing job of it. And it's just so good.
Well, yeah, and I mean, just speaking about like the publishing thing, like at least with the He-Man, I found it annoying, but not too much, because there was that story that carries through all the Sundry miniseries and everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, my only bitch about that was when they gave He-Man like a new suit, and I'm just kind of like,
yeah, they tried to make him Iron Man.
Well, yeah, it's just, but it was part of the story, and I forgive that. But it's a sad fact of the business, especially with the big two companies like Marvel and DC, that nothing seems to last more than a year and a half tops before something happens in the company that a lot of titles get rebooted with a new number one. It's still canaring on the story and a lot of times the art and writing staff, but it just almost like somebody hits that do-over button constantly. So yeah, it wasn't a huge.
It's one of those things where, like, at this point, I don't expect a He-Man series, whether it's a crossover with another property or not. I don't expect it to be a full-on, And then you look back and like, oh, guess what? We're going to take New 52 Detective and we're going to return it to its original numbering so we can reach issue 1000. So, like, Detective Comics has never been, stopped or what. And it's just...
in Action Comics. That's something, again, something for Action and Detective, like the two longest running, continuously published comic books. That I could understand, because that's a monumental achievement in and of itself. It's kind of like when they started crowing about the Monday Night Raw being the longest running weekly episodic TV series.
It's only been going on for 23 years, it'll be 25.
Like,
yeah.
It's not like you could make the argument for some soap operas and such. I'm just saying, like, I can understand why they would want to do something like that. And again, even that, the renumbering and then bringing back the old numbering is something to do. Marvel started doing that in the 90s, like when they rebooted Spider-Man and then, like, the Avengers and Captain America and Iron Man post Heroes Reborn. You had, which was ostensibly Volume 3, and then towards the end of run of those series, or just a few years down the road, they went back to the original numbering. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that. Like, again, that's some of the industry. It just, that's how it is. I'm not a huge. I'm neither yay nor nay, because it's just part of it now, unfortunately, and I've just kind of gotten used to it. Again, like having only a certain number of issues in a series, and then they reboot it, or oh no, it was only a maxi series the whole time. Yeah, it just okay, whatever. I'm just throwing up my hands and just whatever. I'm good. It's like bitching about sales tax, and from state to state and province to province. Like, look, do you have enough for a 6-pack of beer? Then why complain?
I'm sorry. Anyone charges me 35 cents to use my credit card, there's something wrong.
Yeah, that's just, we're not going to get into that.
Friggin' California. Anyway, Batman Beyond, Brave New Worlds, first 6 issues, 2015 series, Dan Jurgens, Bernard Chang. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, yeah.
I
can fit this into the animated series timeline. I can. No, just go with me on this.
How?
This is my head canon, so make of it what you will. So you got the animated series, then you take the tie-in comic books and the digital stuff, which just kind of takes place concurrently and then after, where Terry in this new world, because this is not the future that the original Terry went back in time to prevent.
Right.
So basically, it could be said that the animated series and the digital comics happen, then this Brother Eye invasion, Tim shows up, and it goes from there. Because they even references to the animated series in I think it was the 5th or 6th issue, just after Tim gets the Jim Gordon. There's a panel, and I forget what page it's on, 'cause I wasn't keeping count here, but there's a panel where he lays into the Borgs and kind of rallies the cops and the citizens, and you even see Shriek and Spellbinder going to battle, stuff like that. So it's a very loose connection, but it could be said that all this stuff happens because this is clearly a few years after Terry's become Batman, which would include him having a falling out with Bruce and going to university and stuff like that, which it can work. I'm just saying, in my head, that's how I see it works.
Yeah. Yeah,
but yeah,
could. See, the thing for me is you have the whole of the animated series. You have Kyle's run up until he did Mark of the Phantasm. Mark of the Phantasm, because I asked Kyle directly, that obviously takes place after Return of the Joker. So, because that was his answer to Return of the Joker. I can see this kind of fitting, but I like that it, we kind of have it fit from the, from the standpoint of the New 52, because, like I said before, I need to go back and read some of the Batman stuff. I've never read any of the Superman stuff in New 52. At some point, hopefully this year, my buddy Michael Bailey and we're going to go through all the Supergirl volumes from New 52, the 6 volumes for Supergirl.
Sorry. That's that initial design of Supergirl with the hooker fuck me boots, and then they turned her into a Red Lantern. Then she's not, and I read comic books. I'm a fan, like silly storytelling, but just kind of the argument they gave in the current Supergirl comic to tie it in with the storyline of the Supergirl TV show, which I love. By the way, I'm not knocking that because Melissa Benoist is Supergirl. Mm-hmm. We all need the living ray of sunshine that is Kara Danvers in our life.
Yeah, well, not until she opens her mouth with Grant Gustin. As soon as that happens,
that's just adorable. Anytime they're in a scene, I'm looking.
No. I mean, later this year, the singing episode is going to happen. So
Dude,
I can't wait for that.
They're using the like, it's not going to be NPH, unfortunately, but they're using the Music Meister from
Yeah, I know.
Brave and Bold, and I'm just like, that's one of my favorite episodes from that series. But just kind of I wouldn't say convoluted, but it's just kind of, I read the first couple of issues of that Supergirl, and I was just kind of like, really? That's how you're doing it? So, I mean, you guys can have fun with that. Yeah, I never read a lot of the Superman stuff. I only really started paying attention to it when they depowered him, and just after the John Romita Jr. run on Superman. I more or less, I've kept up with Batman since the beginning, just because I love Batman. So I've read a lot of that stuff. Year 0 is, it's kind of kind of seemed like a weak version of No Man's Land to me, and say nothing of Endgame. Like, Endgame just kind of Jesus, like, it brought the noise, is what I'm saying. So if you guys get to that, man, just enjoy, because it is so good.
Yeah, I read Endgame, and I thought it was really, really interesting. You know, and I thought it was cool, because, as I said before, Death of the Family was kind of sadly anticlimactic to me. But Endgame was very, very awesome. But Batman Beyond 2015's Brave New Worlds, absolutely loved it. We have a 0 to 5 rating scale here at the GCRN. I'm going to just rate the story arc overall. I'm going to give it a 4. I really, really dug it. There are a couple of issue points in the very beginning with the art that I just kind of... I got past eventually, but at first I just couldn't get past them. But what about you? What would you rate this one?
Now, as much as I want to be like Billy Bob and, Varsity Blues,
I
agree with you. I'm giving it a solid 4. I take that 1 point off. It's a little mix of the art. Like, I like Bernard Chang's art, but I agree with you. Like, some of those monochromatic panels and everything, I wouldn't say it strained my eyes, but it was jarring. Mm-hmm. And it's there. Like, the story's there. I really did enjoy it. It's just, I can't really, it's just like, I can't, it's just, there's something, it just doesn't bother me, but there's something there. It's just, if I ever figure it out, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we can talk about it as we go along in the series, but it's just one of those things where, as I said, for me, it's the, like, super glossy into the super, realistic, effects art, the red, white, and orange kind of stuff, and the effects of Batman punching somebody or something. That was kind of jarring to me, but after a while, I got used to it.
Yeah.
Coming up next on the pull bag, my buddy Comic Revolt Dan from Talking in Circles and Cinema Geeks, actually Movie Revolt Dan, but he's going to be joining me for a couple of episodes. Next Back Issue Classics after this will be I Hate Fairyland issues 9 and 10. This will be our final I Hate Fairyland episode for a while, because I think at the end of issue 10, Scotty Young said that he's going to go do other stuff and come back later to I Hate Fairyland.
It's on a hiatus.
Yeah. And then episode 138 of the podcast is going to be myself and Adas Baron finishing off Eternity War with He-Man for issues 14 and 15. That'll be the series finale for that. And at some point in late March, early April, we'll get to He-Man Thundercats. We're going to do that as one whole episode, so there's that. Dan will be back to talk Hatteran's Wall, which is Kyle Higgins, Rod Rice, and Alex Siegel, their newest project. That's an 8-issue series from Image. Episode 140, get your voicemails, emails in now. I'm going to tell you right now, folks, because this episode of the Pullbag that you're listening to now airs the second week of February. Episode 140 is 5 years of jumping inside the Pullbag. March 5th, 2017 is our 5-year anniversary. So if you have any feedback, anything you want to send in, just send it to tf2andmike@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter. You can follow the Pullbag on Twitter at the Pullbag, at Geekcast Radio for all the other network updates. What is your Twitter?
It's at JT from Saskatoon.
Awesome. Make your great escape into comics, and we will catch you next time here inside the Pull Bag.
The voice kept calling me Bruce. In my mind, that's not what I call myself.
What do you call yourself? Oh, yeah. I suppose you would. But that's my name now.
Tell that to my subconscious.
You've just heard the latest episode of the Pull Bag, the GCRN's comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you are leaving the message for, and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. Send us an email feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.